How are you, Camille? Are you okay?
Hi, I'm brilliant, thank you. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my knowledge and experience.
That's most appreciated. So I'm going to hand over to you now, so enjoy the session. Over to Camille.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you straight away. And then I'll introduce myself. So let me just make sure all of this works. So my name's Gamiel Yafai, and I'm a diversity and inclusion strategist. So I've been a diversity and inclusion strategist for 21 years. I spent my first 9 years heading up diversity practices for marketing, branding, advertising, recruitment advertising organizations, and the last 12 years running my own diversity consultancy. Really, really privileged to work with some phenomenal organizations and even more phenomenal individuals, nationally and internationally. And what COVID or the last 2 years has done is really extend the bar in terms of people's expectations. We talk about revolutions, or we talk about evolution, particularly when we talk about diversity and inclusion, and which is obviously inclusive of neurodiversity. But we talk about an evolution. What we're going to start having soon is a revolution, and I'll explain more about that as we go along. So I'm the author of Demystifying Diversity and an author of Yemen Proud, which is my own cultural heritage. And I really genuinely believe that we really need to understand ourselves first and then understand our impacts on others. And I often say to people that from my experience, and by the way, I'm the father of a brilliant son, Gabe, who has autism, dyspraxia, and ADHD. And if I'm being honest with you, it took me 12 years to work out how to support my son to get the best for him, or best out of him for him. So, and I work in this area. So this is not easy. It is very, very challenging. And you will have heard from, earlier today from all of the brilliant speakers, more about this area. So what I want to do is I want to take you on a little journey, take you through some of my experience, share a few videos, but also get some feedback from you, not about me, but about what your experiences are and what you can do more of. I was saying I work with clients all over the world, and I never cease to be amazed by what's happening in different countries. And if you look at some of the South American countries like Colombia and Brazil, you would be amazed at what they're doing around diversity and neurodiversity. The government actually gives them a target. Every organization has to have a minimum of 4% disability. Otherwise, they get heavily fined. And let's say every single country is different. So I want to use Mentimeter today. And Mentimeter is really, really easy to use because it gives you the opportunity to share with me and to share with everybody else as well. So Mentimeter, all you have to do is open your phone or open a browser and enter mentee.com. Just an abbreviated mentee.com, and it will ask you for a code. And once it asks you for the code, you'll see the code at the top of the screen, but I'll read it a couple of times just so that you're more comfortable. So it's 6058 7247. So I'll repeat that again. It's 6058 7247. So if you can enter that, and I'll give you a very quick sort of tester. Many reasons to access and to optimize the talent positive contribution of neurodiversity. We need to offer our employees what we offer as a service, so that people stay with us. And some fantastic comments, and also just to let you know, we will share these comments with you so you can have a look at them. Another thing I wanted to share with you is, let's say, over my 21 years, the whole, even though neurodiversity in terms of the word has only been, I would say, in people's minds for the last 3-4 years, maybe 5, the whole area of disability is still at the bottom of people's lists. And that is still sad, because they're not recognizing the ability, as you've all seen from today, the ability of individuals who are neurodiverse, and the ability of everyone else. I want to share a video with you, and I'm going to send you a copy of this, just so that you can show your organizations. So this quick share.
Congratulations on making the top 100 diverse-ish companies for 2019.
Thank you.
So this year you've announced that diversity is at the heart of your brand agenda. How does that address disability?
That's a terrific question. And the thing is, I think this is all about inclusivity. Yeah. So this year, for instance, Chris, we sponsored a float at the gay parade. So we're completely supportive currently of all the LGBT, the QI. There's more letters, I know. I always forget them.
It does change all the time.
We believe in marketing to everyone. We don't want to single out disabled people for special treatment, because that's, they're too valuable.
So you don't market to anyone specifically?
We do. We do to everyone who fits in with the core brand message, which is as much about inclusion as it is about embracing the future.
La diversité est essentielle dans notre groupe. Nous avons fait réaliser une fresque magnifique sur le mur de la cantine qui célèbre, et je pense que ça va vous plaire, l'émancipation des Noirs.
I just wondered, what your reputation as being a company with diversity, very much a part of your brand ethos, whether you've ever considered a range of clothing for disabled people?
We're a high fashion brand for those with high disposable income. So disability isn't really an obvious choice for us. I mean, we love disabled people. So we're really active in helping and supporting other companies within this sector to solve that problem. Thanks for asking.
And what about disability in the workplace? Do you have any disabled employees?
Oh, yes. In fact, just stop the cameras for a second.
Would you say that the makeup of your company workforce is reflective of the percentage of people with disabilities of working age in this country?
Disability is something we feel is very important in this business going forward. I think 2019 is going to be an exciting year to be disabled.
Yeah. So this is Bill. He's paraplegic, isn't that right, Sharon? And you're on our diversity page on our website, aren't you, Bill?
Yes, I'm the only one currently.
Tremendous addition to the team.
Yeah, disability is something that we are committed to investing in very soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When?
Le tout est de trouver le moment le plus important. 2019 est déjà consacré à célébrer la femme, l'avenir féminin et tout ça.
The 2019 is earmarked for BAME, BAME. It's an important cause. It means a lot to me personally.
2020?
Ice cats.
2021?
Mindfulness.
Do you have a year in mind for people with disabilities?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just watch this space. That's what I can say. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And that video is a few years old, but it is more relevant now than ever before. And when I talk to organizations about what they're doing and what they're prioritizing, we do global audits within organizations. They'll go, yep, we're focusing on gender. And I'll go, okay, so how are you supporting women with disabilities? And they literally go silent because they think about gender from one perspective, and that perspective does not incorporate disability, ethnicity, age, or anything else. In order for us to progress, this agenda, and it is moving, and even since that video, we've got fashion houses who are focusing on clothing for individuals with disabilities. And neurodiversity is starting to become, part of the conversation, even though a lot of the clients that I work with don't even realize that a huge portion of their staff will be neurodiverse. Those individuals who are coming up with all of those brilliant ideas, those initiatives, are neurodiverse. Some leaders will recognize it and they're brilliant, but most people just won't even know, the different issues and challenges that people experience, particularly in light of the fact that still so many individuals haven't been diagnosed. I mean, I'm convinced that, I am on the autistic or the spectrum, whether we call it the autistic spectrum, the neurodiverse spectrum, we are all, and I believe we are all on that spectrum at some, maybe at some phases of our lives, in some circumstances, etc. But we are all different. The key to recognizing the diversity, the neurodiversity of individuals is about focusing on being human and recognizing the whole individual and not just certain aspects of each and every individual, because everybody on this call will have, you will have an age, you will have a gender, you will have an ethnicity, you will have a sexual orientation, you may have a disability. I can guarantee you that a lot more of you will be neurodiverse than you actually realize. The key to success within organizations is recognizing, the whole individual, but also encouraging people not just to declare, but to uncloak what they're hiding. Bring more of themselves to work, to talk about their disability, to actually feel that they can showcase their vulnerabilities, because what it does, particularly leaders, because what it does is it encourages everyone else to actually show who they really are and become more of themselves at work. When we talk about neurodiversity, we are talking about huge amounts of talent that isn't recognized. And that talent, and if we look at this illustration, when people are allowed to be more of themselves and to bring their true selves to work. But when I talk about true selves, I'm talking about being allowed to be their true selves by their managers, and their managers not holding them back or stopping them from experimenting or stopping them from being curious. So, bringing your whole self to work isn't just bringing part of your home life to work. It's about being allowed to be your true self. And the more we're allowed to feel part of that community, to feel wanted, to feel valued, the more we will bring to an organization. We are still at such low levels of knowledge around neurodiversity, but we're already seeing brilliance start to come forward. So, as I was saying earlier, every one of you will belong to so many different characteristics. How much of your authentic self do you believe you bring to work? And the thing is, because we are all different, we all experience the workplace differently. There are so many different cultures that we need to maneuver around, and dependent on the culture of the organization will depend upon how much of ourselves we bring to the organization. But for everyone that brings less than 80% of themselves, that is huge potential that the organization is missing out on in terms of talent, in terms of potential, in terms of ability, in terms of capability, capacity. If you're not recognizing something or someone for the potential that they have, you are missing out on that potential capacity building and capability to do more. So again, a great mix, but we need to be working on those, more time on those below 80% and keeping those above 80% comfortable, not comfortable, but motivated to continue to enjoy what they do. So why are you not able to be your authentic self in your organization? Sometimes it's easier with a yes/no question. It takes less time to complete. But, lack of support, open criticism, feeling uncomfortable, embarrassed, misunderstood, misrepresented. And that's just a few of you, because disclosure some personal issues is not welcome. You see, we need to be creating environments where people can be honest and open, and that they're going to be, judged on their ability, not on their disability. Because bullying, it's a professional environment which has certain expectations. You see, I have this come up all the time. Who decides what professional and what professional really is, or what it means, or where those boundaries are? And can we go above those boundaries, or are we limiting ourselves? So stigma, concern about people's perception. When we bring our whole selves to work, or even 90% of ourselves, we start to unleash that diversity of creativity, thinking, diversity of creativity and experience and ability. And every single part of your organization has a role to play in terms of creating those more inclusive environments for people with neurodiverse challenges. And again, they're all societal challenges. They're things that we've put up that have prevented people from being the best that they can be. Whether it's your senior leaders or HR or marketing, finance, every single department, particularly IT, in terms of making sure that every piece of equipment is adaptive, is inclusive, and isn't just giving out to, they don't just give out the same thing to everybody. So this just gives you an idea of the different departments and what they can be doing. I'd really like to sort of dig just a bit deeper into your organization in terms of how aware you are in terms of good diversity practice, or where you are in terms of good diversity practice. Are you at level 1, which is inactive? Are you at level 2, which is compliant, so you'd adhere to legislation or governing bodies? Level 3, proactive, which is about systematic change, but looking at your positive practices procedures with an inclusion lens? Or are you proactive, which means that you've already done that work, that hard work, and you're now starting to see results of it, and you're changing things because of it? Or are you level 5? So where are you in terms of, or on this maturity matrix? So this is good, call it good diversity or good neurodiversity practice. Okay, we're middling at the moment. Well, I can tell you now that most organizations, and as we do the global audits, or we do the global diversity, equity, and inclusion audits, which is totally free to download. I know from all of the ones that I do, most organizations are still at level 2, going into level 3, and that's an average. So this gives you an idea of where we're at. So we've still got so much more to do. So what can our leadership teams do to drive neurodiversity inclusion? I will leave us about 10 minutes for questions. So what can our leadership teams do? And there's a whole host of things that they could be considering or should be considering, and some of them very, very simple. Some of them, may take a bit more effort, but you need to have people around you to help you drive all forms of change. So be open themselves and disclose, encourage awareness training, support and encourage openness and honesty, disability, neurodiversity awareness training, focus groups. Listening is probably the most important thing that we need to be doing. And that's listening to the communities and listening to those voices that we need to hear in order to make the right changes for your organization. I'm just going to shift on a bit. Got enough time? No. I'm going to talk about, so what can we be doing? So we haven't quite covered some of the barriers, and I'm just conscious of time. However, I'll talk you through some of the barriers. You have huge barriers in terms of progress around neurodiversity and inclusion. Some of those barriers are cultural, it's bicultural, it's this explicit versus hidden and shadow culture. So the explicit culture of most organizations is that everything's going really well and aren't we doing brilliantly? And then you've got the shadow and hidden cultures that are experienced by people who are neurodiverse, by people who have disabilities. They will experience the whole organization differently through their own lens. And that's why it's important that we give that lens to those senior leaders so that they can see things differently. Other barriers include unconscious bias, and unconscious bias is just our unintentional people preference. We veer towards people who are different, who are the same as us, and we distance ourselves from those who are different. But those unconscious biases create micro inequalities, and those micro inequalities, create poor workplaces. So what can we be doing? We can reflect on which of your actions you need to change, educate ourselves. We can confront those microaggressions and become allies. Allies can exist everywhere in the organization. They've just got to have an interest. So an ally is a person who actively promotes and aspires to advance inclusion through intentional, positive, and conscious efforts that benefit people as a whole. To be an ally, it's about taking on the struggles of others and lifting others up and talking about them when they're not in the room. It's about standing up for others, even though we may feel scared. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Transfer the benefits of our privilege to those who lack it. When we talk about privilege, all we're really talking about is something that you have that somebody else doesn't. That could be a book, it could be a contact, it could be a network, it could be anything. Sometimes it's the simplest of things, but we see privilege as being wealth. It's nothing to do with wealth. We need to acknowledge that even though we might feel pain and the conversations are uncomfortable, that it's not about us. And we need to decenter ourselves and make sure that, if we make a mistake, we apologize. And we need to understand that education isn't, everybody else's responsibility. We need to take responsibility as well. So where are you on the allyship scale? So 1 is it's not even on your radar, you're against it, right through to 6 that is about instigating an organized response. So this is the allyship scale for neurodiverse, from a neurodiverse perspective. Where are you in terms of what you're doing or what you could be doing on this scale? So 1 is actively joins in negative behavior, 2 is no response, 3 is educates oneself, 4 is interrupts the behavior, 5 is interrupts and educates, 6 is initiates an organized response. So we've got 3 responses so far. And, but again, dependent upon your journey and dependent upon your knowledge and experience, will put you in different parts of this scale. And the thing is, we always talk about the most valuable thing you can give me is feedback. And in terms of feedback, the more we know about ourselves, the better we will be when we're focusing on where we need to be. So, thank you for being so honest and open. So where do you want to be? And again, everybody wants to move up. And the thing is, you don't have to move up straight away. This is a journey. Our learning is down to us and our ability to absorb information and the rate at which we want to learn, but also the rate at which we want change to happen. My final question for you is around what can you do to move from where you are to where you want to be? Continue to learn. Be open to changes. Educate myself better and speak up more to educate others as well, to be more educated, to be more inclusive and knowledgeable, be involved, build my networks. Again, and build our networks with people who are different to us. We spend too much time building our networks with people who are identical to us. In order to progress, we need to have those uncomfortable conversations, and we need to, involve those that haven't been involved before. So be braver to totally seek information and person-centered approaches. Keep finding out more, raise more with upper management, listen more, research, appreciate others, keep spreading the word, in particular for Spanish-speaking communities. Absolutely. So I'm going to stop sharing now, but I know I've crammed quite a lot into a short period of time, but you've talked, there's been lots and lots of conversations today around the strengths that people have, the awareness of neurodiversity, the growing interest in dyslexia and what the benefits and huge amounts. So now, I'm hoping that this last session will have brought some of that together and helped you look at, so what is it you can be doing? So, question time.
That was brilliant, Camille. What was brilliant? You just bringing the whole day together was brilliant for me as well. So Thank you so much for that. So there's been some amazing comments. There has. They love the interaction. Thank you for the responses. Love that comment about there. So I'm just reading the comments here on my device.
Thank you.
So excuse me there. So let's see if there's any questions coming in. So that moved. What are your thoughts about neurodiversity and that's a big word. Can you read what Deborah says to me, please? Is it
intersectionality or?
Yes, that's it. Just say that again. Yes.
Intersectionality.
That's what it says. Very good. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that then? What's your? Over to you.
The thing is, intersectionality is seeing the whole individual. You know. For example, if you look at me, you may be able to tell that I'm mixed race. You may not. Some people think I'm Spanish. But it's about getting to know people, and not just to get to know what you see. It's getting to know what's underneath what you see. And intersectionality, if you let's say, from my perspective, intersectionality is, my race, my religion, my age, and the impact that all of those different things has on my ability to be the best that I can be. And it's about not just looking at one aspect of me. And I'm convinced that, I've always been convinced that I am on the autistic spectrum, but only on certain things in life, not on everything. And that's where I think, intersectionality is literally getting to know the whole individual and open up to them. I use 3 questions when I'm talking to individuals. And my first one is, tell me about yourself. And then they tell me about themselves, and they tell me little. And then I'll go, tell me a bit more. And I smile. And the final question, because they open up a bit more. And then I'll ask third question, tell me a bit more. And it's amazing how much people offer you when you show that you really value and you want to hear what they've got to say, and you give them permission to talk. So just another ad, but I do that all the time, and I love what people share with me.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So, someone's asked, where can they find the template for the network action plan you mentioned?
There's the global GDEIB, and if you literally type in GDEIB into your browser, it will bring you a link to an audit tool, and that audit tool, as I say, it's free, but it is the best audit tool, I would say, globally, because it looks at your organization in 4 groups, which are internal, external, foundations, which is your senior leadership, and bridging, which is your DNR, your learning and development, and comms, and then 15 different classifications. And under those classifications, there may be 4 or 5 different questions. So it really does dig deep into your organization. So it's the GDEIB, which stands for the Global Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Benchmark. But it's not a benchmark, it's an audit that creates a benchmark of where you actually are in terms of good diversity and inclusion practice.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So we're gonna put some of that information in the chat box, and of course, when Ben sends out and the team at Dyslexia Box send out the recording, we'll put some of these links in there for you. So that's gonna be really good. So we've got just one other question here. Actually, someone has actually already put it in the chat box, which is brilliant. So that's really useful. What are the barriers to anyone encountered when talking to people about D&I? So what are the barriers, if any, do you encourage when talking about, encount, that's the word I was looking for, encount when talking about D&I?
Right, the barriers, well, yeah. Again, some people will see D&I as being one thing or another. They'll think about gender, and as you saw from that video, which I still find really powerful, particularly when it comes to disability, people avoid it. and they will skirt round it, and they'll use different language. One thing I found over the last 2 years compared to the previous 19 is that people are more open to talking about D&I now than ever. And, but the other thing is, senior leaders are now open to having the conversation. For the last year, I've spoken to more chief execs than I've done in the previous 20 years. And that's no exaggeration. So the barriers are opening. The key when we're talking to individuals is, it's about getting to know them, getting to know them first. And you'll find that they open up, particularly if we're talking to individuals who are neurodiverse. We've just got to be careful and mindful, and my other share is around meeting them where they're at and not trying to overdo it.
No, I think that's amazing. Camille, it's been an interesting listening to you, fascinating what you've said. I want to thank you very much for speaking today.